Good morning, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us for today's Common Sense Financial Literacy Workshop. Today, we're joined by some of our wonderful business pathway professors who are here to help you understand the basics and improve just your overall financial wellness. Today with us, we do have Dr. Kathleen Montesarchio, Dr. Yeaman, Mary Dolan, and Ryan Davis. Just making sure I didn't miss anybody here. Nope. We're all good. All right, thank you so much. So at this point, again, we're going to go ahead and move right on into the program. And I do believe Dr. Montesarchio will be starting us off today.
Hi, good afternoon, everyone. Is it afternoon? Close enough, right? Good morning. Common sense financial literacy. We're going to cover just a few things here. Some money management tips for banking and budgeting, and then some future goals such as learning about credit and debt, investing, and our real estate professional, Dr. Yeaman, will give us a good overview of buying versus selling or renting. So I'm going to start off with the first part for the savings and checking. The one thing that I teach all of my students, because I teach accounting here, some of you guys are my students out there, there's something called a reconciliation. If any of you have ever logged on to your online banking system and you see that, oh, look, I had a transaction, I can say for sure that sometimes banks make mistakes and people can charge you twice. So the reconciliation is literally printing out, I know you guys hate to print stuff because you're all green, but printing out and checking off and keeping the receipts and making sure that on your credit cards and in your checking account, everything is there. I'm gonna have to stop sharing the screen for 1 second because I wanna go into this drip thing. Let me see if it comes right up. So the second part is investing 101. Of course, it didn't work. So hold on, I have to share a different screen. This is what we were talking about. My apologies. So if you, I can't see who's out there. Can you all see my screen? If anybody,
I can see it perfectly.
Okay. Yeah. So do you see on the screen all of these boxes with advanced auto and AMC? Do you all see that part?
Yes.
Okay, good. So yes. The reason why I'm asking you is if you've ever been interested in investing, and most people, if we were to look up Berkshire Hathaway's stock, it's over $300,000. It'd be really hard to go in and try to buy a piece of it or a share of that stock. So there's companies out there that allow you to purchase stock, fractional shares. And I have this particular one up here because they can filter it by industry, by the dollar amount, or direct, however they, what you're doing is you're investing $25 a month and you can buy a piece of a share. And some of you guys may even have Robinhood because I had that up here as well. So this is Robinhood, and Robinhood is doing this as well too. And there's no commissions. But the thing that we're trying to tell you to do is invest now while you're young. I also have this second one up here, and it's called directinvesting.com. And this is what I use in my classroom. If you want to learn about stocks, we only have a few minutes to chat right here, but it's directinvesting.com. And I want you to go, don't laugh, to the kids section, because the kids section is going to show you how much time and how much your monthly investment can exponentially increase. And I know Dolan and Davis are going to talk about the power of compounding, so I'm not going to get too much into it here, but putting away a certain dollar amount, and if you were to invest it and you had so many years to retire, what your actual nest egg could be. They talk about stock investing for kids, the power of compounding, finding those funds, and it shows you how to do this. And this again is a fractional share. And it also, you know, I started with Home Depot and I used to do $30 a month, and I have stock now. I mean, it's several years, but it's worth, you know, $35,000 now over by just putting away $30 every single month and buying those shares. The direct reinvesting simply means when a company pays dividends, shares the wealth of the company, they actually gets reinvested and it buys more fractional shares. So it won't be long until you're actually owning shares of stock. We're going to save room for questions at the end, but the second thing that I wanted to cover with you, if you've ever gone to a bankrate.com, it's one of my favorite sites and I use this in my classroom all of the time. And I want you to see in the big picture, let's say you had a mortgage for $165,000. Well, yes, that would be your monthly payment, which does not include taxes and insurance and all of those other things. But what I want to show you is October 29th of 2050 is when you're going to pay that off. So you can see on our screen here, your first payment would be $836. But the most important thing is, do you see this? That's the amount that you're paying back actually on the loan. This is what you're paying the bank for interest. So your $165,000 loan has only gone down by $217. And this is the surprising part. Let's go all the way down to 2050. Because, well, or let's just look and see when the payment and the interest become equal, or you're paying more on the note. And you can see that it's about 15 years in. But the most frightening thing is when we go all the way down to 2050, I want you to see that you borrowed $165,000, you paid back $165,000 plus $136,000 in interest. So when people are telling you to apply your mortgage payment and apply more extra to the principal, that's what they're talking about. And the last thing I'm going to show you really quick, because we saw that it was $136,000. Let me go back up to the top real quick. And let's just say that we were going to make an extra payment. And let's just add an extra $100, sacrifice Starbucks, and apply those extra payments. So every month, instead of making an $836 payment, you're going to make a $936 payment. Let's see what the difference does. Well, you brought it down. Instead of 2050, you brought your mortgage down by 6 years. And I'm going to go all the way back down to the bottom again so you can see it. And you saved close to $30,000 in interest just by making that little bit extra payment. So I know I only have another second or two. This is called an amortization table. And most of you guys know who Kim and Kanye's kids' names are. I want you to know what an amortization table is. I want you to know what direct reinvesting is. This is the stuff that's going to make you own your home and not have to worry about foreclosures and all that other things. So on that note, I'll wait for questions at the end, and I'm going to stop sharing my screen and pass it on to Dolan and Davis.
You're going to put the PowerPoints up? Next slide. Okay, so hi, I'm Professor Dolan. I teach at Central Business. Ryan and I are going to share a few different slides with you in reference to budgeting. So I'm going to start off, and I know you probably are looking at this saying, what is she talking about here with this little graph in 50, 20, 30? So what I want you to know is we want to, when we're trying to get people to budget and start saving early, we want you to know the factors that go into it. So we want to make sure that you know that all of your needs are covered. That's where the 50% essentials come in. And when we're looking at it, hold on one second, I'm just trying to move my screen around. You have making sure, again, that you have 20% in savings and then 30% personal. So when we're looking at this 50, 20, 30 budget proposal, we want to make sure that we're managing both our debt and our savings. And if you notice, savings was 20%. Obviously, if you could do more, it would be much better for you in the future. However, we try to put a little bit of a limit on it. One of the big things that we would love for everybody to do is avoid overspending. Dr. Montesargio was talking about Starbucks. If you do the math behind how much you spend at Starbucks, it actually ends up becoming quite expensive. So we are in the business for savings. So this is just one way that we can show you from a visual side of the savings perspective. So just kind of remember 50, 20, 30. Next slide. I'm going to hand it over to Ryan.
So in terms of your budget, you want to set goals. You want to track your spending. You should try and track your spending for 3 months. Literally take out, a pen and a paper and write down food, how much you spent that much. Transportation, how much you spent that much. And it'll surprise you where your money goes. I did a budget just recently, and I'm spending a lot of money on Amazon. And it's not on stuff that's like big. It's, it's $20 here, it's $30 here, it's another $25 here. And then every month, all of a sudden, I'm looking, wow, I spent $400 on Amazon? What did I get? And I can't even remember what I got, which again, kind of goes back to what Professor Dolan was saying about overspending. So just me, all of a sudden, I'm like, tell my wife, maybe we should cut back on our Amazon spending. So you just want to see, where is that money going? And then once you actually see that for 3 months, then you could start to go, okay, let me cut back on my Amazon spending and put more towards savings or put more towards my other item. And that kind of goes back to that first point of setting goals. You want to really set like your short-term, intermediate, long-term goals in terms of your finances. If you have a credit card right now that has a balance of like $500, set a goal that you want to get that paid off in 3 months, 6 months. That's a short-term goal. Then maybe in an intermediate goal, you might want to buy a new car in like a year or two. So start saving every month, $100, $200, so you have a down payment for a car. And then a long-term goal is that maybe in 5 years, maybe in 7 years, you want to buy your own house. So put that as a goal and start to realize I need 20% down. And again, Professor Yami will tell you a lot more about this. But if you want to have 20% down and you want to buy it in 7 years, start to realize how much you need to save now per month so that in 7 years, you have that money for that down payment. So once you track your spending, once you kind of know your current position, you then set your goals moving forward. I want to buy a car in 2 years. I want to buy a house in 7 years. I want to complete my degree at Broward College and have this certain job making this certain income in certain years. Then you could really create that budget and get that number exactly where you want to go. And when you look at the budget that Professor Dolan gave, where it's 50% essentials, 30% in terms of personal, 20% in savings, 20% in savings, Americans, we don't save enough money. Every single one of us, I could tell every single one of you in here right now, you're not saving enough money. You need to start saving more money. And you want to save for three reasons. Emergency fund. You need to have an emergency fund. Most financial experts will say that you need about 3 to 6 months of your monthly expenses. So if you calculate your monthly expenses and your rent, your car payment, all of your water, electric, all those bills, if it's like $2,000 a month, again, which South Florida, which was unheard of, but if it's $2,000 a month, if you need 3,000, if you need 3 months in terms of an emergency fund, that means you should have $6,000 saved up in an emergency fund. Okay, most Americans probably don't have that, and I know they don't have that. So let me just share these two screens real quick. So let me share this right here. So here is the personal savings rate in the United States. And you could see back in the 70s and 60s, 70s, we were saving at over 10%. Then we got our hands on the credit cards in the early 80s. And then, wow, we saw our savings rate go down to 6%, 5%. Where again, we're just not saving enough. Now, of course, when COVID hit, we all started to save a lot. And saving right now is at 14%, which is a pretty good number. But more than likely, we'll see that number go down. What you need to see, though, is, again, you're just not saving enough money. That the Federal Reserve came out with this survey that asked people, do you have $400 for an emergency? And 40% of Americans did not have $400 for an emergency. A $400 emergency, this happens to me every 6 months, where a tire pops and I need to go buy 2 new tires and do the alignment. The water heater breaks and I have to go get a new water heater and pay the plumber to install it. So this is not something that's not going to happen. This is going to happen. So you really need to save more money for those emergencies, because otherwise you're going to end up putting it on your credit card. And then once you put it on your credit card, you're going to get that credit card debt. And then you're going to have to pay more in interest. And it's just, you're going to dig a hole and it's going to be very hard to get out of. Could you share the PowerPoint back one more time? And again, that's a great point. Just a little bit every month is going to add up. So you want to save for that emergency fund. You want to save for those large expenditures, as we were saying earlier. You know, set that goal. You want to buy a new car in 2 years, start saving a little bit every month. You want to buy that house in 7 years, start saving a little bit every month. And again, it's just going to continually grow. And you also want to save for retirement. And you're probably thinking, well, that's ridiculous. I'm so young. Why would I start saving for retirement now? Again, it's going to be the compounding. It's going to be the more time you have. It's more important to have the time in the market rather than timing the market, if that makes sense. You want to have as much time in the market as possible. So you want to start when you're 18 years old so that you have 50 years in the market. All right, next slide. So I think the next slide, yeah, here are a bunch of money apps that you could take a look at and see if they could help you with budgeting, with savings. And one of these is at dollar.com, which is a Dave Ramsey app. And I'm going to show a video of him trying to explain compounding. So compounding is, you get the interest on top of the interest on top of the interest on top of the interest. And it's like a snowball that once you start to get that snowball going, it's going to really make a big difference in your life in the long run. So let me try and video at this time.
It's a mathematical. Einstein said that compound interest is the 8th wonder of the world. Now, compound interest is simply this. You take your money down to the bank. Let's take this $1,000. And we take it down to the bank and we put the money in the bank. Now, you leave it there and it earns interest, and you leave the interest there. The next year, you earn interest on the $1,000 and on the interest. The next year, you earn interest on the $1,000, on the interest, and on the interest, and you leave it there again. The next year, you earn interest on the $1,000, on the interest, on the interest, and on the interest, and then you leave it there again. That's what compound interest is. The trick with investing is you got to start, and you got to start right now. You got to get started. So we're going to get the $1,000 out of the way. We're going to get the emergency fund built as quickly as we can. We're going to get you out of debt, and then we're going to get you investing as fast as we can in these baby steps, because time needs to be on your side. Let me show you what I'm talking about. Let's look at Ben and Arthur for a minute. Ben starts saving money at 19 years old. He saves $2,000 a year. He does that all the way up until age 26. At age 27, you will notice Ben puts in 0. Say 0. 0. At 27, he quits putting money in, but he's got the pump primed. The snowball is there. It's starting to roll down the hill, and every time it rolls over, it picks up more snow because it's a bigger ball each time it rolls over. Then his brother Arthur on the other side, he looks up and says, ooh, Ben's saving money. I need to save money. He starts saving money at age 27. Now, let's fast forward all the way to the end of the story at age 65 and see what happens. What happens is, at the end of the story, Ben has put in $16,000 and has ended up with $2,200,000. Arthur, who put in $78,000, only ends up with $1,500,000. The guy who put in $78,000 later ends up with $700,000 less than the guy who put in $16,000 earlier. Some of you are looking at that and going, that's a real nice chart if I was 19. Well, let me tell you this. If you're in here and you're under 25 years old and you grasp what I just showed you intellectually to the point that it drops from your brain into your heart and changes your behaviors, I just made you a multimillionaire. You shouldn't be allowed to graduate from college or high school without being able to explain that chart.
So that, again, is a 2-minute little video where, again, if you understand it and if you are capable of saving that $2,000 in the stock market right now at the age of 19, you will, again, have millions of dollars in your retirement account. Because, again, the stock market on average is going to give you 10% return every year. So the earlier you start, the quicker that snowball is going to grow, and the better off you're going to be in the future in terms of your retirement. So Albert Einstein said, compound interest is the 8th wonder of the world. He who understands it earns it. He who doesn't pays it. So compounding could be your best friend, or it could be your worst enemy if you get credit card debt. Professor Dolan, I think you're taking it from here.
Yes, I am. Credit card debt. So you probably have heard the word FICO before, and I know nowadays, if any of you guys have credit cards, you probably see a little FICO score on your actual credit card. But let's talk a little bit about what FICO is, what it's about. Basically, they're talking about it here. They tell you it's the Fair, Isaac, and Company. Well, that was 2 men, Bill Fair and Earl Isaac, and they created this back in 1956. And what they were doing is trying to report on credit. And depending upon your level of credit, which we'll talk about a little bit later, Professor Davis will go back into this a little bit, but it goes by your credit score and how it affects your future basically in life. So when we talk about it, we're talking about how it is. And I have a little slide that's going to show you something about it. And it kind of does the whole circle so you can see where you sit. And basically on here, and I'm just going to share my screen real quick, they basically say 67% of America are basically sitting in just the good category. So let me bring it up for you just so that you can see what it looks like. Can everybody see that? It's a little target with all the different points, and this is what we're talking about. So exceptional obviously is between 8 and 850, and they basically say 21% fall into this category. I'm going to skip really low to the very poor, which is basically 16% of Americans. And then if you look over here, we have fair, and we have good, and we have very good. Now, most people think that you have to have an exceptional rating in order to get the best of everything. That's not necessarily true. The average person, remember I said 67% of Americans have a good percentage. So that's basically where you're sitting around here, between the 670 and 739. The most important thing that you want to learn about this is we want to get it as high as we can, because it is going to have an impact on your future when it comes time for buying, borrowing money and stuff like that. So I just like to see a visual side of things so that you can see. Now, most college students, they don't fall so into this category. You probably are falling into maybe very poor or fair, and it's nothing against you as a person. It's just a matter of you don't have, you know, everything that everybody else has. Like you haven't borrowed money, and those are things that you're going to build on. And I can tell you one of the ways that you can build is just alone by having your phone utilities and stuff like that, anything relating to that, and that's going to help your credit score grow. So I'm waiting for my screen. So what we're trying to do is show you that that little bullseye captures all the different areas as far as the levels. Now, ultimately, your goal is going to get to exceptional, or at least very good. It doesn't happen overnight. It takes time. So what we want to do is we want you to build on that credit. So making sure that you review your credit scores, which I'm going to show you in just a few minutes, different reports that you can do, protect your identity. Now, one thing I have been reading and catching up on a lot is in reference to college students. So they basically say that 70% of college students damage their credit just after graduating. And it's interesting reads, and it's basically saying that just forgetting to pay one bill, whether it's a credit card bill, anything that's reported. So you want to make sure that you pay your bills on time and everything is intact with you. So I have websites that are on there that you can look at. One's a YouTube video, which I'm going to show you in just a brief moment. Now, here are your credit reports. You have Equifax, Experian, and TransUnion. Now, I'm going to, I pulled up each one of these, the annual credit report, the MyFICO, and these. So I'm just going to share my screen so I can just show you what they look like, just to make sure, again, that you're on the same page, making sure that you're, you know, you're getting the right websites. Just say, can you see? I'm back. Can everybody hear me?
Yes, we can hear you now.
Sorry, my computer completely froze. Okay, so here are just a couple of the reports. This is the annualcreditreport.com. Now, you're entitled to one free report a year. However, there's a way that you can get them twice a year. So you would just, and again, here's all the different ways that you can do it. This one, Free Score Online, it basically is providing you information from all of them. And it's super
Professor
important.
Dolan, I don't see your screen.
Oh,
yeah,
you
I
can't
only see your desktop.
Okay, hold on. It might be because when it knocked
hit
me
one
out.
of those buttons.
Hold on. So here is the Free Score Online, and then here is the one for your FICO score. Now, don't look at the prices down here because you are entitled to free reports. This is maybe if you are continuing on, maybe, I mean, there are people that like to check it routinely. They say, especially during the pandemic now, this is the #1 thing that you should be doing is checking your credit report, making sure something's not being reported or something is being reported that shouldn't be reported. So here are, again, all of the 3 credit reports. So there are ways that you can get them, again, for free. So hopefully you take advantage of that. And I need the PowerPoints back, please. Okay, so those are the different websites. Next slide. So one thing that I want to show you, it's a quick video, again, and it's just about credit scores. So if you want to find out how this information is verified and viewed and observed, and like how your creditors look at everything, I'm going to show you just this really quick video. So can everybody see that?
Major ways to improve your credit score. Part 1. Payment history, 35% of your score. Because this is such a large number, it reveals the importance of paying every bill on time, even if it's just the minimum. If you're struggling with this, we highly recommend setting up automatic payments for everything, especially your credit card. Part 2. Credit utilization, 30% of your score. To avoid damaging this, we recommend not exceeding more than 30% of your maximum credit line, both total and for each individual account. If you're struggling with this, try paying off your balance early a few times a month, or try asking your bank for a credit line increase. Part 3. Length of credit history, 15% of your score. The existence of this component means, rather counterintuitively, that you shouldn't close out your old credit card accounts unless you absolutely have to, as otherwise you'll hurt your credit score. Part 4. Recent inquiries for credit, 10% of your score. This one's simple. Don't apply for new credit cards and loans unless absolutely necessary, as each credit inquiry will slightly lower your credit score by a few points for the next 12 months. Finally, Part 5. Types of credit used, 10% of your score. Unfortunately, we just don't have a rule for this one, as we don't recommend applying for multiple types of credit just to boost your score. Finally, before we conclude, we just have 2 more things for Jasmine to keep in mind. 1. To build a credit history, and thus a credit score, you need to use credit. And the easiest way to do this is to open a credit card, like a secured or student credit card, that are designed specifically for people with no credit history. And don't worry, we teach you everything you need to know in our 2 videos, Credit Cards 101 and How to Rebuild Your Credit. 2. Be sure to check your actual credit report for mistakes at least once a year, as these errors can dramatically affect your credit score. Should you find one, be sure to contact the credit bureau as soon as possible. Hopefully you and Jasmine now better understand.
Okay. So again, that's just a way that you can see how the credit scores are reported. I have one last slide, and it's just a little bit of reminders, very similar to what they said. Make sure that you always are, can you go back one slide? Make sure you're always paying your bills on time. Look at your revolving credit, and then when you're applying for new credit cards, make sure you review them and make sure that they're not charging you the higher interest, and you want to pay off your debt as fast as you can. Professor Davis?
And having a good credit score is very, very important, because when you're at your age, you guys are going to go and borrow a lot of money over the next 10 years. As I said, you guys are going to borrow money to buy a new car. You're going to borrow money to buy a new house. You're going to borrow money to maybe even get your master's degree or a PhD degree. So you're going to borrow a lot of money, and you want to make sure you get the best rate possible. You want to make sure you get the lowest rate possible. And to do that, you need a high credit score. So the higher the credit score, the lower your interest rate. The lower your score, the higher the interest rate. So you want to really be interested in building that credit score now, so that you get these great rates moving forward, and you don't have to worry about as much debt and as such a high interest rate moving forward the rest of your life. Professor Yaman, you're up.
Okay, well, good to see you all here today. Probably a lot of you still live with your parents. I'm not going to assume everybody, but if you want to rent your own place, you might start thinking, it might be good to have a little independence. Maybe I can, afford my own place. So they've already covered credit score. I mean, I personally, as a realtor, I probably won't work with people that have a credit score below 600, because it's very, very difficult to place that person. Especially if you tell me you have a pit bull. So don't get any big dogs. Anyway, big dogs, bad. Background checks are going to happen. Every offer that someone makes to rent a property is going to be, the realtor is going to want to screen you for background, criminal background, evictions, foreclosures, and credit check. So you would want to make sure all these things are in order. Make sure that, sometimes you think some of the things we do don't affect anyone but ourselves, but in fact, when it comes to rent a property, a landlord doesn't want necessarily to rent someone to someone who has a reckless driving charge or a DUI. I mean, think about why that might be. It's because it's a liability to them. If somebody in the community is reckless. Same with associations. A lot of properties you're going to rent, many, especially if you're renting in a condominium community or one that has a homeowners association, they will also do their own background and credit check, and they can reject people if their credit score falls below a certain level, or if they have some kind of criminal charge, or other adverse actions like evictions or foreclosure. So very important to keep that credit score good, and make sure we're living in a way that we can be proud of, I guess I would say. Financial requirements, you might think it's easy to rent. Yeah, I can afford that monthly rent. I'm going to split it with my friend. But in order to rent a property, generally speaking, realtors ask for, and landlords ask for, first, last, and 1 month's rent. So if the rent is $1,400 on a property, think about how much that totals to. I've got to think about it, actually. It's about $4,200. Is that right? And one of the other professors double check my math. 1,400 times 3 that you have to have ready on day of move-in. And you have to have 1 month ready when you present your offer and sign your lease. So you definitely need to be saving, even if you're going to rent a property, because it takes money to rent. Landlords want the first month, the last month, and 1 month security. Okay. Of course, as a realtor and as a business person, I always recommend trying to purchase, because when you're renting, you're paying somebody else's mortgage. Obviously, you have to pay to live in a place. And for some of us, that's our only option. But with a little bit more of a boost, you can actually purchase your own property. Now, there are programs where you can pay 0% down, but those are few and far between. Like if you have a VA program, if you're a veteran, you can go with a 0% down payment, and a lot of times they allow the closing costs to be tacked onto the loan. So if you're a veteran, that's one of your benefits. But for most people, you have to come up with a down payment. And of course, the average single family home price in South Florida is about $339,000. So probably you're not going to buy a single family home. I say that, but I mean, I have a client who's probably as young as some of you, and her husband, who just purchased a house that was $360,000, and they did it by saving about $30,000. Now, one of the good ways to do that, of course, is to live at home, and while you're living at home, save your money. That would be a great option, and that's actually what they did for a year. They were married, young married couple, and they saved for a year, and they had the money to do this. Now, not everybody is going to be able to buy a house. If you buy a condo communities could have two barriers in terms of down payment, meaning two bars that you have to jump over. One of them is that the condo community itself may have a minimum down payment requirement. It could be 3%, 5%, 10%, 20%, 25%. And if you think of a condo of $150,000, and you need 20% down, that's $30,000. So, someone like me or a real estate professional can help you identify communities where the down payment requirement is not so high. Some of them 3%, 5%. And with condos, we have a lot of opportunity to ask for the seller to give a credit because there's more inventory in the condo market than there is in the single family home market, which is smoking hot. It's a strong seller's market right now, which means that there's not a lot of inventory. There are not a lot of homes on the market. So the homes that are there are getting snapped up fast. They're going for over list. So that's something to keep in mind. Condos are probably a more affordable option as long as you're going for one that has a low down payment requirement. Now, the other source, the other barrier for condos could be the lender. If the condo community itself, if the condo community itself does not have sufficient what we call reserves, then the lender must have a 20% down payment or sometimes even higher. So, these are things to keep in mind, but probably a good rule of thumb for yourself is try to save about $15,000, because in addition to your down payment, of course, you're going to have what are called closing costs. You're going to have to pay for title search. You're going to have to pay for title insurance. The title of the property is essentially, the deed that says you own this property. And then the process of buying, the title company is going to check to make sure that the title is clear. There are no liens or any monies owed by the seller. And one of the things that your lender is going to require is that you pay for insurance in case they miss something in the title search, that the lender is insured, and you'll want to be insured as well. You'll need an owner's title policy to make sure that if there's any, some Uncle Joe comes out of the woodwork and says, hey, yeah, you didn't have the right to sell that property, I have an ownership interest, that you're protected. So you have money for, and that's just, those are just some of the things that are closing costs, but there are substantial closing costs. I always say, $10,000 for closing costs, probably pretty much dead on. Now, if you're buying a fee simple townhome or a single family home, you can use FHA financing, which is, everybody has a chance to buy with FHA one time, the Federal Housing Administration. And with that program, you can come with as little as 3.5% down. So a $300,000 house, you're talking about $9,000, and then you would have to have your closing costs. Now, if the market weren't such a strong seller market, sometimes we can negotiate a little bit of a seller credit, but again, single family homes more difficult than maybe with townhomes or condominiums. Conventional loans are used to purchase anything with a condo government, has to be conventional, or if you already have an FHA loan, then you have to go with a conventional loan or portfolio loan. Those conventional loans are also purchased by federal entities, usually Fannie Mae, Freddie Mac, so they conform to certain guidelines, like what I told you before about you can't have, you need to have enough reserves in the community in order to qualify. Of course, you want to use a qualified professional, someone, use a realtor. When you're buying, use a realtor. There's no downside to it. Every brokerage usually charges some minimal transaction fee of a few $100s, but aside from that, most of the costs, like the commissions and all that stuff, is paid for by the seller. They're going to pay it anyway, whether it's to the listing agent or the buyer's agent. The buyer's agent usually splits the commission with the listing agent, and that person represents you and works for you and goes to bat for you and protects you. So you definitely want to work with that professional. Even with rentals, it's very hard to just go out there and just try to find a rental and call listing agents. It doesn't work too well because you don't know how to present an offer. You don't know how to negotiate. You don't know how to get out there and do it the right way. So, I see that I skipped one of the things, pre-approval. If you're going to go out and shop, get a pre-approval first. This is where you call a mortgage broker or you call your bank and you say, I want to know what I'm qualified for. It doesn't mean you have to buy up to that level of payment. You might have your own personal budget in mind, but it's always good to know how much can I afford, because the lender is going to look at things like, how much debt do you have? What's your total obligations ratio, we call it. And if it exceeds a certain amount, you can't qualify for the payment. So they look at things like, what's the tax on the property? What's the insurance? And then what's the principal and interest payment per month? Like Dr. M showed you that amortization table. You have to be able to be, usually it's back end, front end, like 45%, 35%. You can't have more than 45% of your monthly payments. Your monthly payments can't exceed more than 45% of your income. And then your housing payment generally can't exceed more than 35% of your gross monthly income. So, getting pre-qualified is key. You might want to buy that $500,000 house, but you may not be able to. You might need to manage your expectations a little bit. Another thing, down payment assistance programs. I volunteer at the Housing Foundation of America. We run programs for down payment assistance. Broward County actually has 31. Broward County has 31 municipalities or cities 19 of those cities are managed, and unincorporated Broward are managed through the Broward County program. And then certain cities like Dania, Hallandale, Fort Lauderdale, Wilton Manors, Margate Coconut Creek have separate programs. And there's actually a lot of money out there. Like Hallandale offers up to $80,000. Now, the money is not unlimited. It's first come, first serve. When the money opens, we get a text message if we're, HUD approved. You have to go through a HUD approval seminar. It's like a Saturday seminar to get your HUD certificate. And, as long as you've saved, say, like $10,000, most programs give you $40,000. And you can go out and shop. And once you get your contract, and your housing counselor gets the contract, your money is locked down, so you know the money's there, and then you go through the regular approval process. So if you want more information on that, my email is hyeaman@broward.edu. You can email me any housing related question, hyeaman, Helena Yeaman. Anyway, some of you are my students, so you know. The actual process, when you go to buy a house, you're going to go out, you're going to shop. Some of you are going to be afraid to pull the trigger. You make an offer. But I'll tell you what, any offer, even if it's signed by the other side and becomes a contract, it can be canceled. There's something called an inspection period, usually 7 to 15 days. And during that inspection period, you can conduct any inspections you want on the home, as long as they don't destroy the home. Usually they look at typical things like the 4 points, the roof, the electric, the plumbing, the AC. But you could also have a more detailed home inspection. You probably should, because you're not buying a stick of gum. You're buying something that's expensive, and you want to know what you're getting into. And then you can walk away after that period if you don't like what you see, or maybe sometimes we negotiate if there's something that can be fixed. Then once that time passes, your loan officer will pull everything together, submit to underwriting, and order what's called the appraisal. The appraisal is the process whereby the appraiser determines the real value of the home. Now, guess what? If you're willing to pay $500,000, but the appraiser says the home's only worth $400,000, you're going to have a problem. Okay, so that deal can fall apart there. So this is why you want to work with a qualified professional. Make sure that offer price is in line with the market, so you don't have an issue. Because either then the seller's going to have to come down, or you're going to have to come out of pocket. And I don't know a lot of people that have $100,000 laying around at your age. So there's the title process I already went through. The title company is going to make sure that there's no cloud on the title, meaning that the title can pass freely from one person to the next person, the buyer. And so that makes sure that your ownership interest is protected. Your loan will have a final loan approval after you've fulfilled all the conditions. Once the loan comes out of underwriting, they may ask for things. They might ask you for an additional bank statement, or to explain a gap in your employment. Some of the things we're having to explain now is why did I have a gap in employment due to coronavirus? We get a lot of those letters, So there could be conditions that need to be met. You meet the conditions, you get the final loan approval, and title's done with its process, and everything's clear there. And then we go to sign the closing documents. That whole process of looking for a house, finding a house, well, let's just say you found it and we've gone to contract. That whole process takes about 45 days from signing to closing. We call it closing when ownership finally passes, the loan is funded, and you get the keys. So this is the process in a nutshell. If you have any other questions, you certainly can give me a call. Thank you. I'm done. Who's next?
So big picture, everyone. Back up, pay off your debt, try to invest as much as you can so you can buy and own a house, and pay attention to that amortization table as well. I'm pretty sure that Trevor, you could share the slides, or let me just share the screen one more time. And then if anybody has any questions, they're welcome.
Yeah, absolutely. We did get a few questions in the chat.
Okay.
Let me go ahead and head back to the beginning. Feel free, if anybody has some questions as well, feel free to go ahead and post them. We did have one originally when you were talking about investment, and when you were talking about Home Depot. Rafid had asked, how do we filter out which company to invest in?
So I'm a big fan of investing in what you know. If somebody gives you some special stock tip, run. If you go to Home Depot a lot, then you invest in Home Depot. And when we first bought our house, that's where we were putting all of our money. And that's one of the reasons why I selected Home Depot. But if you have children, Johnson & Johnson might be a great idea. If you like, Chrysler cars or, Chevy cars, you invest in General Motors. So you do your little bit of research and find something that's a staple company, and that's where you should invest.
All right.
Else?
So also we did just right here from an M Sanchez, stocks are low right now. So is it a good time to so it is a good time to invest, right?
So that's funny that you asked really quick. I don't know if many of you know this, but Dolan happens to be my little sister, and we both teach accounting. And right when the pandemic happened, we were noticing how the stock was going down so far. We were like, oh, and I wanted Disney stock. So I bought Disney stock. I think it was at 97, and I was completely comfortable with that because I haven't seen Disney stock under 100 in forever. But my little sister over there was like, no, I'm not going to do it. It has to get to 85. So it did. It actually dropped to 85 one day. And she's like, nope, I'm going to wait till 80. Well, it's trading at about 137 now. So that ship has sailed. So you really just have to, I'm not telling you to play the market, but if you can invest long-term in those fractional shares, it's like your own little nest egg, and it will build. That's the key, is just, that Nike, just do it. Just do it.
Disney Plus was the blame for that peak.
Okay, I got in under $100, so I'm good. Anybody else?
Yeah, so we did get a question for Dr. Yeaman. Any tips for a first-time buyer?
Got to unmute myself here. Any tips for a first-time buyer? First step, get pre-approved. Go talk to a mortgage broker. If you need a tip, I'm going to put my phone number in there. Talk to a mortgage broker, get pre-approved so you know what you can afford, because they'll go through with you, how much money do you have saved? What's your monthly income? What's your credit score? And in that time, you'll determine if that's even a possibility for you. Some people want to buy, but they're not in a financial position to do so. So you definitely want to do that. What is the Broward County website for home program assistance? Again, direct it to me, because what I'll do is I'll hook you up with Housing Foundation of America, because Broward County, Susan Weiss and others work with Housing Foundation of America and some other nonprofits where you have to take an 8-hour HUD course. It's offered almost every Saturday. Sometimes I teach the realtor portion of it. I go a little bit more slowly on what are the requirements. And then you'll have 1 hour from somebody who really intimately knows the down payment programs. So they'll go through that with you, but you need that HUD certificate if you're going to use down payment. Darn it, stop calling me, man. If you're going to use down payment assistance monies. Okay, so you want to definitely do that program. If you want, I can post, it's called Housing Foundation of America, and look for Pembroke Pines, because that's where their physical location is. And then sign up. You'll find home buyer seminars, and then you can sign up there. You don't have to go through them. They don't make any money from you going through them, but it's an easy way to get your certificate. You have to stay online the whole day to do it. Awesome. What else? Anything else on home ownership?
Or budgeting?
Yes, we got some in here. Trying to see. So Aria had asked 2 questions here. One was in regards to home buying, but the first one was on the video, I believe, that Professor Dolan that you shared regarding like credit cards and not to just close them, because having that history is important. They're asking, with the reporting, what happens if the company closes the credit card? You're muted.
I don't think that makes a difference.
Yeah, it never had mentioned anything about that, but I'm not quite sure how to answer that, because I don't want to give the wrong information.
Most of the time that's done because of inactivity.
Or
That's the reason why.
foreclosures or, you know, bankruptcy.
It just depends on the situation.
Okay.
Mhm.
Yeah, because I remember Professor Montesarchio, like since you're speaking of inactivity previously, when I had taken your classes, you had mentioned it was really important to make sure just put a small charge here and there and just always make sure that you pay that off and keep a small balance so that we can avoid that.
Yeah, I
Keep
always
the
say
history going.
you should only use, if you're establishing your credit, a credit card for gas, because you have to pay for gas no matter what. So if you charge $30, pay off 29, then you have a running balance, and then the next month pay it all off. Then the next month charge again and pay off, leave a couple of dollars. It just establishes some sort of credit history and a minimum balance.
Mhm.
I don't know how nice your parents are, but if they can add you to a couple store charge cards for a bit, that would really boost your credit score. I've done that strategy before with young people wanting to purchase a home. They don't necessarily have bad credit, they just don't have any credit. You know, and so doing that, I mean, we boosted somebody up from like in the 600s up above 700 within a month. So it does take time for rescoring to happen. Usually it's at the turn of the month. But you know, can be done. So again, you know, working with a good mortgage broker, working with someone who knows what they're doing is very, very important. Yeah.
Absolutely. Now, Dr. Yeaman, she had also asked, how long does the process normally take for home buying?
Well, I mean, it depends. There was one young lady with Broward College that I worked with. It was somebody in administration. I work with a lot of people on the staff, but this lady, we went to probably 60 different condos before she chose. But, you know, buying a home or, you know, whether it's a condo or single family or townhouse, it's not like buying shampoo. Like you go there one week to the store and you look at it and you say, oh, maybe I'll come back next week and buy that shampoo. It's not going to be there next week, you know, so you have to be relatively sure about what you're doing. Remember, you still have the inspection period. So, you know, it could be 60. It's not like on House Hunters, you know, where you look at 3 things and you pick, you know. But by the same token, it could be, you know, you could fall in love, you know, within the first 3. And the important thing is, you know, making sure your real estate sales associate or your realtor is well aware of what you want. And sometimes, you know, we go out once together and you'll tell me things like, oh, you know, I really didn't want a 2-story, or I really, you know, I just realized now that I really want something with a walk-in closet, or, you know, so it's good to sit down with your realtor before, whether it's virtually or in person, and sort of give a wish list or even formulate that. I always recommend to my clients, formulate this wish list on your own and send it to me. I never want to make things too cumbersome because I don't want to, you know, lose business, but it is.
David, I have a question.
Yeah.
Dr. Yeaman, because I watch a lot of House Hunters.
It's fun. Yeah. I know who you like too. I know you like those Property Brothers.
Oh,
They
yes,
met the
I met
Property
them.
Brothers. I think they're all that because they met the Property Brothers. Okay.
But I just have one question. Have you ever had somebody walk in and say they do not want natural lighting and they do not want open concept? Because that's the only thing they say on that show. I'm teasing.
I've had old people say, my God, get rid of these mirrors. They don't want to look at themselves in the mirror. Like, who did this? It's like a house of horrors. You know, I don't have anybody say anything like that. It's true. I mean, all that stuff is staged, it's fake, you know, but it's fun. It's fun to watch. You know, you get some ideas about maybe something you might want, or it's just for entertainment. But you know, sit down, make your list, make sure you know what you want, and also your areas. You know, if you got to know where you want to live. You know, if you have no clue. I mean, I know the neighborhoods, but you know, if you tell me I want this type of thing, I can suggest. But I don't know. You know, you got to tell me where you work. You got to tell me where you go to school. You got to, you know, certain things. It's helpful. The more information, the better. You know, being with your realtor, you're going to be like best friends for like, you know, 2 or 3 months. You know, they call me all hours of the day and night. They text me. I turn off my phone at, you know, at 11 o'clock. But I'm pretty good. You know, if I've had enough for the day, it's okay. We'll deal with this tomorrow. But mostly it's a great job. And we also offer these classes at the college. If you want to get your real estate license right now, some of you in here are from my class, but I teach Prep 1, which is the real estate licensing course on Monday nights, session 1 in the fall. And then I teach community association management in the spring in session 4. So if you're interested in property at all, come on down. Yeah. Rafi,
Awesome.
you had something?
He was asking, he was just clarifying that you can get the real estate course and license through Broward.
That's what I'm here for, partly. Yeah, not just for entertainment. Yeah.
Yeah.
You can get the license too, or is it just the course?
Oh, you can get the license too.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
Both
it's the non-credit
licenses.
course, correct? Because I know they offer
No,
the
it's
real
a
estate.
4-credit course.
Oh, they have
It's
the 4-credit one as
4
well. Okay.
college credits. It's a college
Okay.
course. You take it, you sit for the exam for the class, and you get your certificate. As long as you get a 70 out of 100, you get your certificate to sit for the state licensing exam. You have to sit for that exam within 2 years.
Okay.
And with the CAM, the Community Association Management, that prepares you to be a property manager. We do have an advisory board here. We've just been offering this class now for 2 years, and we just got someone who got their license, so I'm forwarding her resume to our advisory board. We have property management is a big thing down here in South Florida. Every big commercial property or residential property needs a manager. And sometimes you can go out and make your own management company and get paid $100,000 per community for managing, who cuts their lawn and who takes care of, the sidewalks and paints a parking lot and processes applications and stuff. So these are really 2 good career fields for you. So if you have any questions about that, I'll put up my email address and then you can email me.
So maybe Professor Davis could put in that link to Ramsey, because I think I saw somebody in there looking for that link as well. That was a great video.
Yeah, I'll put that on there now.
Yep. Now we do have a question regarding stocks. So Patricia's asking, she works for Domino's, which is one of the companies that offers discounted stocks to their employees. And she's asking if it's a smart idea to purchase those stocks if you do work for a company that gives you those discounted rates.
Oh my gosh, you're getting bargain prices. Yes, of course. It's just like, the difference between public and private companies. Domino's is a public company and Publix is a private company, and you can only get their stock if you work there. So if they're giving you a special deal, do it. There's my new logo. Just do it.
Yeah.
Or like DJ Khaled says, another one.
Yeah, I have quite a few friends that worked for Ultimate Software, and after they went private again, all of their stock packages got cashed out. So even though he only worked for them for 3 months, those original stock packages were worth between $10,000 and $15,000.
Yeah.
That each one of the employees ended up getting back. So absolutely.
One of the only other thing that I don't want to bore everybody, but I say this in my classroom all the time. If you work for a company that's a public company and they're giving you stock or they're matching your 401k. So let's say that they're giving you 6% and you can put in 6%, they'll match up to 6. Always put in the maximum that they're going to match. Otherwise, that's free money. Free. Or that commercial, free, literally free money. And it's encouraging you to save that money. So we can have a whole other conversation on that one.
Now, out of the different apps that you can download to invest in, which is the best between Stockpile, Robinhood, etc.?
I've heard of Robinhood. You can always open an investment trading company. I've never heard of Stockpile, so I'm going to do my research on that one. But all of my students, even in your class, they talk a lot about Robinhood. So
yeah, I use it personally. It's really easy to follow. And now that they offered the partial shares is nice too, because if you don't have the money for an entire share for what you want to invest in, you being able to just get a small portion is nice.
Just a great thing. Great tool. I encourage all of you guys to open an account.
All right, so we have a question from Jessica, back to credit. If we get a student credit card, is there a specific amount of income we need to have, or are most companies understanding?
Professor Davis or Dolan?
Can you repeat the question again?
Absolutely. So if we get a student credit card, is there a specific amount of income that we need in order to qualify, essentially? Or are most companies understanding due to the type of credit card that it is?
I'm not necessarily sure that they have a certain amount of income because being a student, but that's something the credit card would do. They would have to research, I shouldn't say research. They'd have to look at what your credit rating is and stuff like that.
Yeah. Do the student credit cards work the same way as a secured, where you need to put down a certain amount of money as a security for it? No.
It would depend, because there is a secured one where you have to. Just one thing I would say about student credit cards, make sure you look at the interest that they're going to charge you. You're a higher risk, so you're most likely going to have a higher interest. Professor Davis, do you agree?
Yeah, and if you can get a regular credit card, then I wouldn't get a student credit card.
Yeah.
So, if you couldn't get a regular credit card and the student credit card was the only one that you're able to get, then I would get that, but I would just stick with a regular credred card.
Yeah.
Or a gas
I had to start
card.
with a secured card because I had debts from an old apartment that we used to live in. And luckily was able to move from a 740 to, or a 540 to a 740 in roughly 18 months.
Or a gas
So secured credit
card.
cards are a great place to start.
Yeah. Gas are number one, I think.
Mhm.
Because you can't do too much harm unless you're buying everybody gas.
All right. So I do think so far that pretty much wrapped it up as far as questions are concerned. So in that case, any add-ins from you four for everybody here before we close out?
Save, save, save.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Absolutely. So again, everyone, thank you so much for joining us today. In the chat, I just included a link for SurveyMonkey so that you can go ahead and submit your review for today's session. Again, on behalf of Student Life, I want to thank you so much. Again, go ahead and double check that chat for SurveyMonkey. We would love to hear your input on today's session. And thank you so much for joining us.